So when Moshe came out, saw the Egyptian beating the Jew, and according to some Medrash, actually having already killed the Jew. So he didn't, says in one of the early books Meir wrote, he didn't convene a commission to issue a report on the root causes of Egyptian anti-Semitism, like all the federations and the B'nai B'rith do about anti-Semitism. He took matters into his own hand because it's a Chilul Hashem. When a Jew is beaten, it's a desecration of the Jewish honor, of the Jewish people, as the people of Hashem, as the descendants of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. When a Gentile is goyim are beating on Jews. So he didn't look for an excuse not to get involved. That's a Jewish leader. He didn't look for an excuse and say, well, I'm the beloved of Parry. Maybe when I grow up, either become the king or be close advisor to the king, maybe I'm going to be able to influence him. And I'm going to be able, I'll be able to help the Jewish people get out of their slavery or lessen their slavery. This isn't where I should make my stand and risk it all. That's how most people think. Is this a good enough, a big enough issue for me to take a stand where I'm willing to lay it all down? Lose everything. Roll the dice. And whenever anybody says that, of course the answer is no and they walk away. But Moshe Rabbeinu didn't do that. He was a true Jewish leader, and he had this in a young age, the burning passion to help his people, his love for his people, his dedication to his people. Won't let him do these cowardly things that are just self-centered selfishness. He took action. A Jewish leader, Meir said over and over again, a true Oev Yisrael, someone who loves the Jewish people, is there for his fellow Jew wherever and whenever they are in need. And they risk it all to go out to lay their lives down to save their fellow Jews. There aren't very many people who do that in the world, in our history. And Moshe Rabbeinu exhibited it. And he didn't know. He thought no one was around. He thought it was safe to act. But the next day he found out someone had seen. Dasan and Aviram had seen. And they were now going to report him to Parry. So true Jewish leadership is predicated upon Ahavas Yisrael. True Jewish leadership is dependent on, stands or falls on love of a fellow Jew and willingness to be Moser Nefesh, self-sacrifice for a fellow Jew. The thing we said at the beginning, Meir said that the reason that there are difficult people and they're going to stone you, etc., and you want to be the leader, you got to put up with that. It's not just stam because the people are like that, and they're very hard to get along with, or very unlikable because they're so ornery and so recalcitrant and stubborn. It's because when you love them, you can't stand to see them going astray and losing their perspective and their purpose and falling away from the path that Hashem wants them on. So you're going to tell them the bitter truth and not sugarcoat things for them and flatter them and soft pedal with them so that they just just feel a little tiny pinprick of uncomfort at what you're going to say to them. Sometimes they're going to be hit over the head with a 2x4. Sometimes you have to do it very gently and very softly. But other times when you're going to have to use the 2x4, if you're going to do it, you're going to get reaction from them. And it's not going to be pleasant. And Moshe Rabbeinu was willing to do it then when he killed the Egyptian to save the Jew. Different midrashim, whether he was too late already. It's even a greater act of Mesiras Nefesh if the Jew is already dead. If the Jew is already dead, he's not bringing the Jew back by what he's doing to kill the Egyptian, but he's taking vengeance for the Jew, so the Jewish blood shouldn't have been spilled in vain. He's taking vengeance because it's a Chilul Hashem. Whoever strikes a Jew strikes God. Meir wrote. And Moshe saw an Egyptian man striking one of his fellow Hebrews. He looked this way and that way and saw there was no man, there was no one around. And he struck the Egyptian and killed him and buried him in the sand. Moshe could have walked away from the scene with any number of rationalizations. He could have walked away and turned his back. He could have said to himself, is it really worthwhile to endanger myself by killing this Egyptian? Wouldn't it be better to turn away, live to fight another day? After all, I am a member of the royal family and in a position to help the Israelites down the road in the future when the time is right. Moreover, Moshe could have reasoned that killing the Egyptian was not worth it, since the Jew was already dead, as the Midrash Shmos Rabbah 1:28 seems to indicate. What good then would killing the Egyptian do? Would it bring the Jew back to life? And if the Jew was dead, maybe it was forbidden for him to endanger himself by getting involved? Because there's a law, any Hebrew who kills an Egyptian is the death penalty. Moshe understood, however, that such rationalizations are improper. He understood that in a situation of Chilul Hashem, desecration of God's name, such arguments carry no weight. Danger to life is no excuse, nor are deliberated considerations to the tune that the time is not yet right, or perhaps I can do better another way, another time, another place. All convenient excuses, all very, very, very search for and yearn for ways out from having to make a stand and risk it all. Chilul Hashem brooks no delay, as we're going to discover in another week or two. Seeing the Egyptian kill the Jew, Moshe, with anger and fury, struck the Egyptian to avenge the Jew's blood and God's honor. For as Rabbi Hanina said in the Gemara Sanhedrin 58b, striking the jaw of a Jew is like striking the jaw of the divine presence. This is the Jewish response, not to let the Gentiles smite with impunity, since every single blow represents a desecration of Israel and a desecration of God's name. Anyone who smites a Jew must be smitten in return. And just to flesh this thought out just a tiny bit more, he could have said, maybe it's forbidden for me to endanger myself. More than this, perhaps I'm not allowed to kill this Egyptian, for I am not a duly constituted court of law. And perhaps the verse, neither is it good for the tzaddik to punish, in Mishlei, Proverbs 17:26 applies to me. The Gemara in Brachas says, 7a, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi wanted to harness God's moment of fury, which occurs once every day, to curse a heretic Jew and kill him. But when the time came, he dozed off, so that he couldn't say his curse and kill the sinner. His response was that presumably this happened because neither is it good for the tzaddik to punish. But that you can easily say there's a difference there. One is a fellow Jew who might do tshuva, another is a filthy Gentile who has already killed and murdered a Jew in cold blood. So Moshe, however, understood that all these accountings are false. He understood that in a situation where Chilul Hashem, all these arguments carry no weight, even all of them put together. Even Pikuach Nefesh, saving of lives, of saving his own life, of endangering himself, which usually takes precedence over all the other commandments in the Torah, does not justify backing out from Chilul Hashem. Even for an individual in private, unless there is a definite danger to life, then because it's in private, he can save his life, even though it's a Chilul Hashem, because it's absolutely private. But if it's public, even if he's sure he's going to get killed, you're not allowed to back down from a public humiliation of God's name and let the goy walk all over Hashem's honor. You have to die. You're trying to prevent that. Whether it's 3 cardinal sins or whatever it constitutes at that point in time, a Chilul Hashem. So, Meir says, by killing the Egyptian, Moshe bound himself inexorably to his nation. Yeah. inexorably to his nation and to his destiny. He jeopardized all his property, his glittering lifestyle, even his very life, if his deed would be discovered. But nevertheless, he did not hesitate. As another medrash in the Mechilta says, Moshe gave his soul for Israel, and they were called by his name. Right? Moshe and Bnei Yisrael sang the song at the Sea of Reeds. Azishir Moshe means Klal Yisrael sang. So Moshe, because he was Moser Nefesh in this moment, he bound himself to Hashem and to the Jewish people forever. And where do we find that Moshe gave his soul for them? It is said, and he went out to his brothers, and he smote the Egyptian. So because he gave his soul for Israel, they were called by his name. And the Torah is called Torah Moshe also. Hashem gave Moshe Rabbeinu this preeminent role because of his great midos, so because of his great love of the Jewish people, and because of his great midos. And it all comes out at Azishir Moshe, Moshe's greatness. He could have run away from the problem, chose not to. He never even hesitated. So, Meir once, I don't know if he was away in America, I think he was away in America at the time. He could have been in prison one of the times. His son Binyamin, was in high school. He wrote an essay, there was an essay contest about Vladimir Zeb Jabotinsky, the great Beitar movement hero. And he came in third place. Binyamin won third, whatever the third prize was, he won it. Third place for the best essay out of 100, I don't know, however many. Right, so his was chosen third. So Meir wrote to him a note. It's in the second volume of his biography written by his Rebbetzin, his widow, Rebbetzin Libby Kahane. And she makes note of it that Meir's exact words were, best I can remember offhand, is that I knew you had great talent and great potential in you. You should always use all your kochas nefesh, all your talents, all your spiritual strength. Always use it to try and save the Jewish people. That's a Jewish leader. Jewish leader doesn't care for himself. Jewish leader cares about Klal Yisrael. Jewish leader cares about our being safe. A Jewish leader cares about our spiritual welfare and coming back to the Torah, doing the Torah mitzvahs properly. Jewish leader cares nothing, even at the expense of his own family. Right? It says Moshe Rabbeinu's children were not excellent Talmidei Chachamim because he didn't have time for them. He had a total dedication to shepherding 3 million Jews through the desert to Eretz Yisrael and teaching them every nuance and every point of halacha along the way. And building the Mishkan and serving Hashem and getting the Jewish people to understand what Hashem had chosen them for. To be a Meleches Kohanim Goy Kodesh, a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Holiness is not done on the cheap. Holiness is something that we have to work and strive with every fiber of our being. It doesn't come easy. Hard work. And just multiply that exponentially when you're trying to lead other Jews besides yourself or your own family in holiness, how much harder that is. And that's what the great leaders like Moshe Rabbeinu. And Lahavdil, because who are we to compare anybody to Moshe Rabbeinu, but Meir Kahane was also an Ohev Yisrael and a Jewish leader who knew what sacrifices were contingent upon being a Jewish leader in order to what he had to give up. Sleep, money, fame, fortune, whatever it was, he laid it all down for his people. And that's why we include him in our closing expression. When we sign off and we say, Good Shabbos to everybody, Shabbat Shalom, we say, Od Avinu Chai. We should never forget that Hashem is always here. He can never go away. Am Yisrael Chai, nothing the nations of the world could ever do to us. We just survived 8 years of Obama, and now we're going to celebrate tomorrow In just a few hours, we're going to celebrate turning the page and the downfall of yet another anti-Semite who wants to destroy Klal Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael, and he failed, like Haman failed. And finally, we say Od Kahane Chai, because the spiritual wealth that he left us, his example that he set for us, stands for all time to inspire us to become like him. And you kill 2 Kahanas, you're going to have 1 million in a short while.
Amen. Shekor, Chazak Baruch, Shabbat Shalom.